Shimeon Lee from the Taxpayers Alliance with us this morning. Good morning to you, Shimeon.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. The context here, I keep on saying it, the context is when you've got a political body, in other words, Stormont, which is going to be delivering difficult decisions for people in Northern Ireland. How much are they looking at themselves in terms of where money might be saved, or how they're going to justify money to the public that's being spent within their entity?
Well, I think it's very clear that public sector pensions are in dire need of reform. You mentioned the 34% employer contribution in the Northern Ireland civil service. That's actually far higher than the sort of employer contributions in the UK public sector at large, which is about 27%. And even that 27% figure is actually far, far higher than what everybody else in the private sector gets. Employer contributions in the private sector are actually just around 4%. So the civil service and the public sector are actually receiving far, far more in employer contributions than everyone else in the private sector. And this is a big problem because we've got about £2.5 trillion worth of unfunded pension liabilities in this country, and that's equivalent to the entire national debt. And that's actually growing massively, about 47% in the past 4 years. And I think the fact of the matter is that public sector pensions, they're unfunded, they're unfair, and they're unsustainable.
Well, the point that Paul Gosling's making, Shimeon, and I'm sure he can make it himself to you, is that sometimes this very high, relatively speaking, pension contribution is to offset against these people not being paid enough.
Well, I think if we look at the numbers of what people in the public sector are actually being paid, we actually find that people in the public sector are paid 8% higher than their counterparts in the private sector. And in addition to this 8% higher pay, they also receive a pension that's worth up to 6 times more. The value of their pension is actually worth 6 times more than in the private sector. So if you look at someone from the ages to about 55 to 65, someone at the end of the career, you'll see that in the public sector, the value of their pension is about £210,000. Now, compare that to someone of that same age group in the private sector. Their pension's worth just £30,000. So that's actually a huge inequality there. And the TPA has actually done, Taxpayers Alliance has actually done a research paper looking at this topic. And we find that if you include pension contributions to their pay in the public sector, total remuneration has actually risen about 8.8 percentage points above inflation since 2009. So it's not true to say that the public sector actually receives less than the private sector.